The security footage shows nothing unusual. A young woman in a black hat walks through the Century City Mall, shopping bags in hand, a hopeful smile on her face. It's February 15th, 2003, 1 p.m. Christine Johnson, 21 years old, has no idea she has less than 5 hours to live. Christine had moved to Los Angeles 2 years earlier from Saginaw, Michigan, chasing the dream that pulls thousands to Hollywood every year. She was sincere, determined, refusing to let rejection dim her aspirations. That Saturday morning, she spoke with her mother Terry on the phone, planning her mall trip. Terry told her to pick out a Valentine's gift for herself. They said goodbye. It was the last conversation they would ever have. Monday, February 17th, 2003. Terry Johnson's phone sits silent. 48 hours without a call from her daughter, unprecedented. They spoke every single day. Terry dials Christine's cell phone, no answer. She calls Christine's workplace. The receptionist delivers chilling news. Christine never showed up for her shift that morning. Christine was never late. Not once. Terry and her husband immediately contact the Santa Monica Police Department. Detective Virginia O'Brien-San takes the case. The family flies to Los Angeles within hours. When they arrive at Christine's apartment, everything appears normal except Christine isn't there. Her father places a poster on the wall near the entrance, Christine's face smiling out at an empty room. "I couldn't believe this was happening," Terry would later recall. Police share Christine's photo with local media. The tip line goes live. Volunteers flood the streets with flyers, stapling them to telephone poles, canvassing empty lots. Strangers fall in love with Christine's bright smile, her determined spirit captured in every photograph. Detective O'Brien-San contacts Christine's credit card company. The records show purchases at the Westfield Century City Mall. On February 15th, white blouse, black skirt, black heels, hosiery. Security footage confirms Christine browsing stores around 1 p.m., but reveals nothing suspicious. No threatening figures, no confrontations, just a young woman shopping. Then she vanishes. Christine's roommate provides the first real lead. That Saturday afternoon, Christine returned from the mall excited, showing off her new outfit. "I have an audition," she told her roommate. "A big one." She changed clothes quickly and left around 4:30 p.m. The roommate couldn't remember where the audition was supposed to be. Phone records paint the final movements. At 5:04 p.m., Christine called an information line from Laurel Canyon in the Hollywood Hills. A witness came forward days later, a woman matching Christine's description, driving a white Mazda Miata, pulled over to ask for directions to a house up the hill. After that, nothing. Investigators turned their attention to Christine's ex-boyfriend. She'd filed a domestic violence report against him weeks earlier, though they were reportedly trying to reconcile. He admits to the incident, claims it was an isolated mistake, insists he loved her deeply. "Anything I can do to help," he tells detectives. Multiple witnesses confirm his alibi. He was out of town on February 15th. Another dead end. February 20th, 2003. 5 days after Christine disappeared, the police tip line receives a call that changes everything. "I saw the article about the missing girl," Susan Murphy tells the operator. "I need to speak to whoever's leading the investigation." Within minutes, Susan is connected to Detective O'Brien-San. What Susan describes makes the detective's pulse quicken. 3 weeks earlier, January 24th, Susan was shopping at the same Century City Mall. A man approached her near the cosmetics department. He introduced himself as Victor Thomas, a director of photography. "I know this sounds ridiculous," he said, smooth and confident, "but we're casting for the new James Bond movie. You have exactly the look we're going for." The man rattled off names, legitimate directors, photographers, costume designers. He knew the industry. It seemed plausible. But then came the specific wardrobe requirements. White men's shirt, black skirt, dark hosiery, black heels, as high as possible. Detective O'Brien-San's hand freezes over her notepad. Those items were never published in the news, yet they match exactly what Christine purchased on February 15th. Susan continues her story. Something felt wrong about the invitation, so she called the Screen Actors Guild. No James Bond movie was in production. No auditions were being held. She knew he was lying, but decided to meet him anyway, hoping to expose whatever scheme he was running. The next day, January 25th, Susan arrived at the meeting location carrying mace and a camera. Her boyfriend Tony, a second-degree black belt, watched from the car. The man appeared nervous when Susan demanded identification. "I don't have any," he claimed. When she pointed toward Tony, the man's demeanor shifted instantly. "You know what? You're completely wrong for this part." He turned and ran. Tony and Susan chased him in their car, finding him hiding in bushes around the corner. Tony pulled him out, attempted to frisk him. The man broke free and sprinted through traffic on Santa Monica Boulevard, disappearing into the city. Susan reported the incident, but no crime had technically occurred. Police couldn't pursue it further. Now, 3 weeks later, Christine Johnson is missing. Detective O'Brien Scene works with Susan to create a composite sketch. The drawing appears on news broadcasts across Southern California. White male, mid-40 seconds, confident bearing, knowing eyes. The tip line explodes. February 24th, 9 days after Christine disappeared. Hotel valets discover her white Miata in their parking lot. Terry Johnson receives the call, her mind racing to the worst possibilities. They're going to find Christy in the trunk. They're going to find blood. But the car contains only Christine's cell phone. The valet remembers a man dropping off the vehicle on February 16th, one day after Christine vanished. Every piece of evidence points toward catastrophe. The composite sketch triggers memories across Los Angeles. One by one, women come forward with stories that mirror Susan's experience and Christine's last known movements. Elizabeth Bazzini's encounter happened 12 years earlier in 1991. A man at a restaurant told her about a James Bond movie opportunity. They sat at the bar together. Elizabeth noticed white powder floating on top of her drink. She excused herself to the bathroom, called the manager. "This man is trying to incapacitate me. Call the police immediately." She returned to the bar, stalling, asking about the powder. "It's sugar," he claimed. Elizabeth suggested they switch drinks. The man's expression shifted. He ran out before police arrived. Christine Klugen's story dated back to 1989. A man calling himself John Maroney claimed to be a music executive with Columbia Records. He invited her to an industry party at a hotel. They arrived in a limousine, took the elevator to an upper floor. The hallway was silent, no party sounds, no voices. He led her to an empty hotel room. The attack was immediate. He threw her onto the bed, became physically aggressive, pulled pre-positioned ropes from behind the bed frame. Christine fought free, ran into the hallway screaming. Police arrested a man named Victor Paleologos for the attempted assault. He accepted a plea deal, 3 years probation. Kathy DeBueno met the same man in 1999 at the Century City Mall, the same location where Christine and Susan were approached. He gave her a business card claiming he worked for Disney on a new James Bond film. Kathy knew Disney didn't make Bond movies. Her agent called the number on the card. The real Disney employee, whose name appeared on the card, called back immediately. "Tell your client not to go. I never met her. Someone is lying." Kathy's father, a detective in New York, warned her against the meeting. But she decided to go anyway, bringing a stuntman friend for protection. The man never appeared, likely watching from a distance, spotting her companion, disappearing before making contact. 4 years later, Kathy saw Victor Paleologos' face on television in connection with Christine's case. She called police immediately. More victims emerged. Heather Meyer in 1998. Another attempted assault, another arrest, another lenient sentence. Paleologos served 3 years and 5 months in prison. He was released on parole on January 20th, 2003. 4 days later, he approached Susan Murphy. 3 weeks after that, Christine Johnson disappeared. A parole officer calls Detective O'Brien Scene after seeing the composite sketch broadcast on television. "That's one of my parolees," she says. Victor Paleologos. Police execute a search warrant at Paleologos' residence. His computer contains photographs of women wearing identical outfits. White blouse, black skirt, high heels. The pattern is undeniable. Investigators learn Paleologos is already in custody on unrelated charges, attempted car theft. They bring him in for questioning. "Have you seen this young lady?" Detective O'Brien Scene slides Christine's photograph across the table. "I've seen reports on TV every day." Paleologos responds, his voice flat. "I don't know her. Tell us where she was the last time you saw her." "Last time I saw her, she was on TV." Paleologos claims an alibi for February 15th. He met a friend at an IHOP restaurant that Saturday night. The friend confirms they ate together, but the meeting occurred hours after Christine was last seen alive at 5:30 p.m. Plenty of time for everything to go wrong. February 27th, 2003, 12 days after Christine disappeared, 2 vigils are held simultaneously, one in Los Angeles, one in Saginaw, Michigan. It's Christine's 22nd birthday. Happy birthday, Christy, Terry says to the cameras. Please come home safe. I can't find peace in my life without you. March 3rd, 2003. 16 days after Christine disappeared, police ask Susan Murphy to view a physical lineup. She enters the room, her heart pounding. 6 men stand behind the one-way glass. Susan recognizes him instantly, third from the left, same knowing expression, same calculating eyes. That's him. Victor Paleologos. Susan leaves the station with Detective O'Brien seen. As they walk toward the parking lot, the detective's phone rings. Her expression changes. Susan's heart drops. I remember overhearing Virginia talking on the phone, Susan later recalled. My heart dropped. Hikers discovered a body in a ravine off Laurel Canyon Boulevard in the Hollywood Hills. Detective O'Brien Scene arrives at the scene. The descent is steep, treacherous. As she gets closer, details emerge. A white female, hands restrained behind her back, wearing a white blouse. The detective moves closer, checking for a specific identifying mark, a small tattoo. It's there. Christine Johnson. Detective O'Brien CN makes the call no parent should ever receive. They said that Christy was no longer with us, Terry Johnson remembered. I told him I appreciated the fact that they found Christy. And I said, treat her with dignity. The medical examiner determines cause of death. Asphyxiation. Christine died shortly after her last known contact on February 15th. But investigators face a devastating reality. No forensic evidence. No DNA under fingernails, no fiber evidence, no hair samples. The body had been exposed to elements for over 2 weeks. They have no eyewitnesses to the actual crime. Yet the circumstantial evidence proves overwhelming. The pattern of behavior, the identical wardrobe requirements, the timeline, the victim's testimonies, everything points to one man. Police charge Victor Paleologos with the murder of Christine Johnson. July 13th, 2006. The trial begins. 7 women take the stand. Each describes eerily similar encounters spanning 15 years. Each testifies to the same scheme: fake movie auditions, specific wardrobe demands, promises of career breakthroughs. Each woman's courage helps build a case that DNA evidence couldn't provide. Kathy DeBueno describes the Disney business card scam. Elizabeth Bazzini recounts the tainted drink. Christine Clujan relives the hotel room attack, the pre-positioned ropes, her desperate escape. Heather Meyer details another assault that put Paleologos in prison, a sentence far too short. Susan Murphy faces Paleologos again. I truly believed I was staring at a dangerous predator, she recalled. My voice was shaking, but then I looked at Christy's family, and that broke my heart. I kept thinking, what if that was my dad sitting out there? The prosecutor lays out the timeline. Paleologos released from prison on January 20th, 2003. 4 days later, he approaches Susan Murphy with the same scheme. She escapes. 3 weeks pass. Christine Johnson buys the exact outfit Paleologos specified. She drives to Laurel Canyon for an audition. Hours later, she calls information, asks for directions. A witness sees her pulling over to ask about a house up the hill. Then, silence. The next day, a man drops Christine's car at a hotel valet. 16 days later, hikers find her body restrained in a ravine, wearing the white blouse she purchased for an audition that never existed. Faced with overwhelming circumstantial evidence, Paleologos accepts a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. But days later, he attempts to withdraw his guilty plea through an 11-page handwritten letter to the court. I'm going to deny the motion, Mr. Paleologos, the judge responds. The law states very clearly, a plea may not be withdrawn simply because the defendant has changed his mind. September 15th, 2006, Victor Paleologos receives his sentence, 25 years to life for the murder of Christine Johnson. Terry Johnson addresses the court. Victor Paleologos has been allowed the freedom to let his dangerous behavior escalate, resulting in the terrible loss of Christy, my beloved young daughter, a beautiful young woman on the threshold of her life. The women who testified against Paleologos didn't know Christine personally. They never met her, never shared a conversation or a laugh. Yet their stories intertwined with hers in the most profound way, each woman's escape made possible by luck, intuition, or the presence of someone else. Each woman carried the knowledge that Christine wasn't as fortunate. It could have been me. Susan Murphy reflected years later. There was a part of me that felt very close to Christy because of that. I never knew her, but a part of me feels like I do in some strange way. Kathy DeBueno carries different guilt. Till this day, I will never forgive myself for not having my stuntman friend lie down in the back seat of the car. I imagine Paleologos was waiting somewhere with binoculars, saw that I had a man with me, and that was the end of that. The women became advocates, speaking publicly about abuse and violence, encouraging survivors to come forward. They emphasized that every story matters, that every testimony contributes to stopping predators who exploit the justice system's failures. Terry Johnson visits Christine's grave regularly. Every night I go outside, whether it's 10 degrees below zero and snowing, I go out and say goodnight, Christy, I love you. The case exposed systemic failures, lenient sentences for violent offenders, parole systems that released predators with minimal oversight, a pattern of escalation that multiple arrests couldn't interrupt. Paleologos had been caught, convicted, and released multiple times over 15 years. Each sentence was too short. Each release came too soon. Until Christine Johnson paid the ultimate price. Her death became the stopping point that should have occurred years earlier, saving lives through the courage of women who refused to let her story end in silence. They stood in courtrooms, faced their attacker again, and ensured that justice, delayed and imperfect as it was, finally arrived. Christine never got her big break in Hollywood, but her story, told through the voices of survivors, continues to resonate. It reminds us that predators rely on silence, on victims who feel powerless, on systems that minimize patterns of violence until tragedy forces recognition. The women who testified transformed their trauma into action. They prove that coming forward matters, that speaking truth to power, even when systems fail, can ultimately save others from similar fates. You are not going to just be a victim for the rest of your life, Susan Murphy tells survivors now. What you can be is completely powerful. Christine Johnson's grave sits beneath California sky. Her parents visit often. Her memory lives on not just in their grief, but in the courage of women who barely escaped the same fate. Women who refused to let her death be in vain, who stood together and said, enough. The footage from February 15th, 2003 remains a young woman in a black hat, shopping for an audition, hopeful and determined, with no way to know what waited in the Hollywood Hills. But now, when people watch that video, they also know what happened next. How her tragedy sparked a reckoning. How strangers became advocates. How justice arrived through collective courage. Every night, Terry Johnson looks up at the stars. Good night, Christy. I love you. And somewhere, 7 women who never met Christine carry her memory forward, transforming darkness into light, one testimony at a time.